Good afternoon, everyone. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy afternoons. Some of you all are business owners. Some of you all run organizations and work in community organizations. So I really appreciate you all being here with us today for the Metro Nashville Disparity Study. Naturally, we find this process to be very important. It's a critical juncture here in Nashville with a lot of the growth that's been happening, a lot of the new opportunity that's coming. And we want to make sure that from our side as Griffin and Strong and representing Metro Nashville that we do the best job that we can to provide you all with the factual predicate and the data necessary in order to provide and build upon the programs that have already been established in the past. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Really quickly, some housekeeping items. The restrooms are right outside of this door to the left. In the back is the sign-in sheet. If you have not signed in, please do so. And we will all go ahead and get started. Also, when we motion to approach the podium here is a microphone in the middle of the aisle, so you don't have to come all the way up to the front. And we will go ahead and get started. Really quickly, just to make note, really appreciative of our client, Metro Nashville. From Metro, we have Brian Gleason here in the back of the room. Brian's job today is not to engage in commentary specifically regarding Metro's programs or the study, but he's simply here as an observer. Naturally, when we're doing these processes, Metro wants to know kind of where they can improve, and that's really what his commitment is to be here today. He will be around after the public hearing session. I will be around after the public hearing session to engage in any questions, concerns, any clarity, points of clarity that you all would like to explore. So to get started today, the Metro Nashville government naturally has partnered with us, Griffin and Strong PC. We are a law and public policy consulting firm out of Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in this space for over 25 years now. And really our commitment and our specialty that we consider to be our wheelhouse is program development and management. From the inception of this entire CROSIN process, our CEO, Rodney K. Strong, who cannot be here today, has been involved in this process pretty much since its infancy. First from anticipating the CROSIN decision on the front side and how they as states would respond. He ran the city of Atlanta's contract compliance department for over 10 years. He's one of the principal architects of the modern state of MWBE contracting programs and crafted the city of Atlanta's EBO ordinance, which is one of the model programs for the nation for MWBEs. So naturally, this is something that's close to his heart. I would love for you all to have a chance to hear from him about his inspiration in getting into this field from being 6 years old in Memphis, Tennessee, and learning about what discrimination was, about how there were places that he couldn't go and things that he couldn't do. And he said he committed at that time that he wanted to work in civil rights law for the rest of his career. So this is what our firm does. This is our wheelhouse. We love working here in Nashville. We've been here kind of on the ground. As those of you all who are familiar, we have been performing the benchmarking reports. We performed the 2004 disparity study. And now, again, we're here to build upon what we already have analyzed a little bit more and in a little bit more in depth for this study this year. So it is the Metro Nashville government's intent to render a diverse and equitable business process. And this study, these anecdotal processes are just a part of how they collect data so we can make sure that whatever we build out of this is going to be the most comprehensive and the most effective tool that you all can use in the community to build out your MWBE and your diverse participation efforts. To assist us with this effort, we have the Maynard Group, LLC. We have Jeff McKissick at the door. So he greeted some of you all as you came in. Their firm has been performing anecdotal interviews for us. We have the Harpath court reporting group that is performing court reporting for us, and everything that is said today will be on the record and available for public consumption. We also have the Atlas Corporation that performed door-to-door notification for vendors to let them know about our survey process, going out on the ground, getting into the community, connecting with community, figuring out the businesses who we might not have been aware of and the small businesses that are still growing and emerging, so we can include them in this process as well. The purpose of this hearing specifically is to hear candid testimony about your experiences as business owners, as organizational leaders, both positive and negative about Metro Nashville, your experiences in this marketplace, both in the private sector with other public entities, and most importantly and specifically with Metro Nashville directly. Your attempt doing business, your attempts at bidding for contracts, et cetera. So we want to know all of these things. And of course, as I emphasize, we don't only want to know about the negative experiences, but we also would like to hear about the positive experiences as well. I mean, there are things that if they are done well and done right, we want to celebrate those things while we're also looking for opportunities to improve. this study and the purpose behind this study is to look at whether or not these you all as business owners and local organizations will be able to help us in determining whether Metro Nashville has discriminated either actively or passively in its private marketplace or discriminated in its public market as they in the consumption of public contracts. We want to make sure that this is focused primarily on minority, women, disadvantaged businesses, small businesses as a whole. You all represent the subset of this community, and we really appreciate you all being here. We also want to emphasize that while we're giving testimony today, please be respectful of the speakers, both for the use of our court reporter so she can make sure that we're adequately tracking and picking up everything that's being said, and also to avoid confrontational or testy engages. We want to make sure this is a respectful atmosphere that everyone's free and comfortable to share. So please, hold off on any comments until we direct you towards the microphone. With that being said, we will go ahead and open up the floor for comments. As I said before, when you are ready to give commentary, please step to the microphone stand in the middle of the floor and begin by stating your name and the business or organization that you represent. That way we can make sure that we maintain the integrity of everything that's said and properly attribute whatever commentary that you provide. Again, I will be around after this process, so right now during the public hearing I won't be available for answering questions, but I will stick around afterwards just to make sure that any concerns and questions and dialogue that you all have for us personally will be addressed and taken care of. With that being said, we will open up the floor for commentary, and please raise your hand and I will direct you to the microphone as you are ready to participate. All right. Is there anyone ready who wants to start us off first? Yes, ma'am.
I'm ready, so I'll start.
Great.
And I have a list. My name is Karen Harrison. I own a small engineering firm called KG Harrison and Associates, surprisingly. First, I want to talk about some of the business impediments to doing work for Metro. One of the things that has a big impact on me is that Metro does not have any limit of liability in their engineering contract. And that gets passed through to me as a sub to the bigger firms. My insurance company prices my annual cost for professional liability based on partially the percentage of contract work I have without a limit of liability. And because Metro doesn't have a limit of liability, most of my work is done for Metro. I pay higher insurance premiums because of that. It would be very helpful if Metro would put even an astronomically high limit of liability, even if it was $100 million, it'd be better than having no limit of liability as far as insurance is concerned. I also get passed through all of the other insurance requirements that are in the Metro contracts, which I'm not sure anything can be done about that, but I carry more insurance than the value of the work I can actually perform in order to meet the requirements of Metro's contracts. Another issue that I struggle with and that's happening right now is that when small businesses are established, you have to be in business for a year, you have to have a tax return, and you have to be in business for a year, you have to demonstrate that you've done a certain amount of work. We all try to get certified as a small business as quickly as we can. So as soon as we get our first year's tax return, we're submitting it to get certified as a small business. Well, as time goes on, our tax situation gets more complicated, and we can't have our tax return ready by the end of February, but our recertification date is the end of February. So then we're faced with putting pressure on ourselves and on our CPAs and accountants to try to get our taxes done much quicker than federal law requires just to get the recertification. So it would be very helpful if the recertification process for people that are due for recertification in the first quarter of the year to have that put off until April the 30th or something like that so that we would have time to actually prepare our taxes. A lot of this that I'm going to talk about next is related mostly to A&E firms because that's what I am. And I want to talk about the proposal and the selection process and the challenges that I see with that. I have a very small firm, just 2 people. The A&E RFQs for Metro are written, require actual written content. it cost me about $5,000 to put together a proposal. So it's, I have to weigh the chance of winning against how much it's going to cost me to do the work. So a lot of times on the small contracts that I'm proposing on, my ability to make profit is limited because I've spent a bunch of the profit doing the proposal because the project is so small. So it would be helpful if there was some alternative method for proposing, such as a form or a table or something that didn't require such a large amount of written content. For a couple of reasons, because small firms usually don't have the ability to write proposals that will compete with written proposals by larger companies. So that makes it hard to compete just because they can hire professional writers, and as small firms, we can't afford to do that. And also just the complexity of the information required. Takes a lot of time to get together. Metro Purchasing says that firm size is not a factor in selection, but it actually is. I proposed on 3 projects as a prime last year, and on one of the projects, the letter that was sent to the mayor, recommend an award, said for my firm that the prime had less resources than the other firms. Now, I had partners on that proposal that had a combined workforce of 30,000. So it's not that we lacked resources, it's that I, as the prime, was small. And so I was taken off considerable points for that. So I think that the ability of the team to do the work should be considered, but not the ability of the prime as a standalone, because why would we ever have partners if we didn't need them? I mean, if we were big enough to do it ourselves, we wouldn't have any partners. The selection criteria is often very vague. For example, lots and lots of the RFQs say, provide examples of similar work, but they do not identify what counts as similar work, and it specifically says Metro has the sole authority for determining if it's similar work or not. So I had one proposal that came back, the comment said that the work that I submitted was not similar, but there was no better explanation other than it wasn't similar. So I don't know why it wasn't similar, so I don't have any chance to improve that in the future because I don't have any more information other than them saying it wasn't similar, but in fact it was similar. And I could demonstrate it was similar if I had the opportunity. The comments on the selection criteria, related to the selection criteria, don't always reflect the actual project that's being done. On one of the RFQs I responded to this year, or last year, one of the comments given for lower scores for my firm was that we didn't go into enough detail about the various methods available for doing the work. Well, the various methods available didn't apply because Metro had dictated what method we were going to use. So having knowledge of a bunch of methods wasn't helpful because Metro already decided what method we were going to use. We also don't get enough feedback on the scoring. There's consolidated scoring given that most of the time says, lack detail in this area, lack detail in that area, lack detail in this area, but you don't get enough information back to be able to improve your next proposal. There's not enough detail given to really be helpful. So some of the things that I think would be helpful to do, some potential solutions, would be, as I mentioned before, to make the proposals, some of them, especially for the smaller projects, more form-based, tables, that kind of thing. Maybe if the BAO had specific training for proposal writing, particularly for the small A&E firms, that would probably be helpful. changing the language of the firm capacity requirements in the proposals would also be helpful. The way that information is currently requested, it asks for the percent availability that people have to work on the project. Well, if you have a firm that says they have 6 people that have 80% availability to work on the project, then either they're not being truthful or they're about to go out of business, because no small firm can have that many people that have that much availability and it be truthful. It would be better if Metro instead required the prime and the major subcontractors to sign a certification that said they had the capacity to do the work, and then to require them to put the people who were proposed on the project unless Metro approves the substitution of staff. It would be very helpful to me personally if the feedback that we get on the selection would focus more on the differentiators between the different proposals. A lot of times you'll read those letters and it says the same comments on every single person. So if the comments really reflected what made one proposal better than the other, it would be more helpful in trying to figure out what you needed to do to win one. And I personally would like to see the individual comments rather than the consolidated comments. I think having consolidated comments makes it too easy for a senior person to influence the decision that's made, especially when they know that the comments aren't going to be revealed. Really, the biggest issue for me is my inability as a very small firm to win work as a prime for Metro. As it stands right now, I will not submit as a prime again because I don't see the opportunity to actually win. And it's expensive, and I don't have the time or the money to continue to do it. And 2 of those 3 that I submitted on last year were specifically for small firms. And still, the firms that are very small can't win against the larger small businesses. So as an A&E, my category goes up to 30 people. Well, as a 2-person firm, I cannot compete against a 30-person firm. They're always going to have more depth than me. But even on those 2 RFPs that were for projects that required 1 person to do the work, I couldn't win because I didn't have enough staff. So, as I said, I wouldn't propose as a prime again. What I do appreciate about the program is that the BAO goes to great lengths to make sure that if a prime proposes to use me as a small business on their proposal, they make sure that they use me. They head them off at the pass if they try to dump me off at the end or replace me with somebody else. The BAO does a really good job of doing that, and I appreciate the fact that they do try to make sure that everybody does the right thing. So that's my comment.
Thank you. That's all very, very pertinent. If we had anyone else who's willing to approach to give commentary, yes, ma'am. And please, again, begin with your name and the name of the business or organization that you represent.
I am Councilwoman at Large Sharon Hurt. So I'm representing the Metro Council Minority Caucus because I also serve as the Vice Chair. And my first concern is that the meeting times for this public hearing last night at 6 o'clock was during the same time as one of the largest council meetings for this city. Several very large decisions were made, and the courtroom was filled to capacity. And for a public hearing of this nature to be held at the same time seemed to be suspicious to me. The second thing is that I know that Griffin and Strong, this is at least your second disparity study, and I'd like to know the results. I know the things that you all said, but I want to know what was implemented from the results and the recommendations that you gave. The third thing I'd like to say is that while I appreciate Griffin and Strong being the company that's used, because Rodney Strong is my homeboy from Memphis, Rodney Griffin, I mean. But it seems because that they use a minority company gives the illusion that they are inclusive in their contracting. And I don't think that's so. And I think that the RFQs or RFPs or whatever that they send out are subjective. I'm aware of a program that submitted for a contract who had been providing services for 3 or 4 years, and a company that was larger in capacity, as the previous speaker spoke of, was proposing to provide those services. The larger company was awarded the contract, and they still don't have the services being provided, and it's 7 months later after them having received it. So I'm concerned about the accountability and enforcement of the things that the contracts require to make sure that those who are awarded them actually complete them. There's also, I'm aware, where a contract was presented and they were asking for minority participation. And the only applicant that had a true diverse minority participant in the contracting proposal received less scores than the one that was awarded the contract. And I just think that those differences are suspect as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your commentary. Really quickly, I know you had some specific questions for us as a firm. I will be available afterwards to answer any questions you have. I do want to make sure that I put on the record that our firm, it has a unique commitment to diversity. I think that our track record would demonstrate that. So we're not just a diverse face that's being put up by Metro. We have a demonstrated track record of producing, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. Regarding the previous recommendations, when we submit studies, and they're approved, and this is just a point of clarification for the community that's here today. Those recommendations are taken, and then the choice is by the elected officials to adopt or not adopt whatever recommendations we give them. So it's not Griffin and Strong's, we don't have the autonomy in that process to push through our recommendations. It's solely at that time at the subjectivity or the objective opinion or of whatever elected body or elected officials that are in office at that particular time.
So can you make a recommendation that they make sure that those recommendations that you give are given?
Well, I will say in every study we do, we of course make recommendations with the expectation and the hope that our studies or that what we put into that study will be implemented. We do also include language which encourages that to be done, but we can't make a recommendation to recommend them to implement our studies.
Well, I just don't understand the purpose. If there is no enforcement of the recommendations, and we do studies all the time, and we have shelves full of studies. Mm-hmm. So I'm concerned about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies if we never implement the recommendations from the studies.
Right. I definitely agree with you, and we can dialogue about that a little bit more after. I don't want to hijack everyone else's opportunity to give commentary with the line of questioning. Yes, sir, you may approach. And again, your name and the name of the organization or business that you represent.
My name is Alexander Kaur. I am a business owner and also a co-chair of the NAACP Economic Development Committee. My concern is based on infrastructure and compliance. Okay. The issue is that a program was started in 2008 to address stated and quantified discrimination. Okay? We implemented a program based on proven fact that Nashville passively or impassively had discriminated against black and minority and women-owned businesses. We implement a 2008 program that's based on good faith discussion in an environment where good faith discussion don't work. And as a result, we see that the program and the recommendations that have been set forth by organizations such as itself and others have not been implemented fully. Several factors that I see that causes the problem in Nashville is that the infrastructure and the monitoring process that you recommend was not fully implemented. In the subcontractor program, which is currently in phase, timely communication to minority-owned businesses doesn't take place, okay? Your recommendation says 14 days to do that. As a business owner, I used to get called the day before the bid was due to ask to submit a bid. Well, I don't have a chance to respond to do the necessary research, okay? Good faith discussion, basically, I'm at a disadvantage. Prime contracts, if we have services that overlap, they said, no, I do that. I want you to do this. And they don't even do it a lot of the time. So there's no good faith discussion with me. They want to give me and set apart what they want me to have, okay? Where I can do 80% of the work, they tell me, say, no, I just need for you to do 5% of the work. And there's no good faith discussion take place. Nothing keeps them from having and reaching out to another firm to do that, other possibility. The other thing is concern about timely payment from primes. My terms are net 15, net 30. They want to pay me when they want to pay me. That's not acceptable, okay? If they're paying their people in a timely fashion, when I submit my work that's complete, I expect to be paid in a timely fashion, okay? And other issues associated with reaching out to people that don't even play in the same particular category segment, okay? I mean, my business is IT consulting. I've had 20 calls from construction companies asking me to participate. When I review the specs, there's nothing in there for IT infrastructure, software consolidation. It's building wiring. I don't do business building wiring. And when I refer them to somebody else and I follow up on that bid, the company that I refer to, they're not even included. So a lot of times you have people that they're reaching out to, they don't even play in the game. And then they say, well, not qualified. Well, hell yeah, that's right, because you reached out to the wrong people, okay? Those are the things that I have experienced personally. I'm not going to have to tell you about, I don't know what these other people experience, okay? We have situations where the city uses reference and piggyback contracts, okay? I was a subcontractor on an award for Metro Nashville Public Schools. Metro Nashville adopted that contract. I'm the subcontractor, I get excluded. And when I notify Metro Nashville that the prime decided not to not use my services, they still get the business and keep the business. So there's no penalty for companies that don't play with the intent. Now, that's my experience, okay? And I have it documented. And I'll provide you links, and I will be providing additional links that show the emails and commentary that has taken place when a prime reaches out to me and says, can you do these type of services? I say yes, and then they don't even submit my name. Or they submit my name and didn't even have a good faith discussion. So the infrastructure is required to have in order for a program to work, okay? And if Nashville and Nashville leaders are not putting the infrastructure in place, they're going to get the same old results. You do the same old stuff, you get the same results. Okay? So recommendations is important. So good faith in regards to the city is required to make something happen. And I challenge the city to have demonstrated that based on the recommendations that you and your other firm have pitted, that they have demonstrated good faith and have produced results that change what the opinion are of a lot of people in this room. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Rice with G&M Associates. We are a engineering and construction service firm. We've been in business in the metro area for 19 years. I have several comments, but I'll start off to kind of piggyback off of what Mrs. Hurt was saying. Here's the deal. My company, as I stated, we've been in business for 19 years. We were approached in '99 to do prosperity study, disparity study, which we declined. We in 2004 did the study with you guys, which took a lot of time, out of my schedule. But I said, hey, going to give it a shot. So after that time, and I guess you guys tabulated all of your information and presented it to the powers that be. At the end of the day, nothing happened. So I was approached in 2016. I'm like, why should I, take my time from my firm and from my family to participate in something that with no avail, nothing's going to happen. See, here's the deal. In my opinion, since it is mandated by the federal government, this is a dog and pony show. What you guys, or what governments do, it is mandated that they do the study, but when you guys do the study, nothing is implemented, and then you look and there's another regime coming in, and they do the same study, and it's kind of like a hamster on a wheel. So, curious to see what's going to happen this time. And the other thing is good faith. Let's talk about good faith. There has to be honor among thieves. And you can't put the fox in the hen house. Essentially, is what you're doing, because good faith is I'll reach out and call a couple of people, but if there's no set in stone procedures to say, okay, we're going to say, or it should be on a point-based merited program, because if we do business, like I said, I've been in business for 19 years. You do business with people you know. It's just the way that it is. People that you have had experience with. So for you to venture out, you have to have an incentive. So, it's just saying a good faith effort, that's, basically telling me to have faith without works. Doesn't happen. We were awarded a contract from Metro as a prime, and they had a goal for small business, and we've looked at several, but there is no, in the construction realm, for minority business or black-owned businesses. And I'm curious to know what's the percentage of black-owned business I can only speak for my field, in the construction field, that has been awarded to African Americans or black firms. Bet you at the end of the day it's less than 2%, and that's with them gerrymandering the numbers. So I don't know what the answer is, but obviously this is not the answer, because at the end of the day, it is mandated by the government. So we all will come down here, and everybody will spend their time, and at the end of the day, it's in my opinion, and I hope my opinion is wrong, but it's going to end up like it did in 2006. So that's why I'm here today. So I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm John Cooper. I'm a councilman at large. I'm also the currently the councilman for District 1, and I'd like just to make a few comments. Thank you for being here. First, I would like to second all of my colleague Sharon Hurt's comments, who's been really in the forefront of talking about this issue and the whole community. But I have a couple of things to say quickly. One, I want to share the frustration of everyone in the room, but to encourage you, Griffin and Strong, to help us get the truth told. Help us get the truth told. Because we have this process and we're letting it be used cynically, I believe, for not the purposes that it's meant. Now, I want to share a specific story on this. I'm at the Parks Board meeting yesterday. There's a vendor that has a very valuable lease from Metro and puts up on the board in their presentation minority business participation in this program, over 30%. That looks great. Now, I don't know some of the vendors, but I do know one of them, which is an outfit called Trojan Labor. So this is used to validate their utility to this community. Well, Trojan Labor pays no benefits. They're anti-union. There's no skills training. They have a lot of workplace violations, and they fire their workforce every day. So they have no liability in case there's an accident on the job. You're hired and fired on the same day, and you avoid all legal repercussions. Now, this is a bad practice, and yet they are showing up on a list by a prominent Metro vendor for how cooperative they are on doing business. So this is clearly a cynical manipulation of the process, and out-year manipulation on compliance with this, where you award a little bit and then maybe in the out years to somebody else, that there's really no policing and the drawdown of these contracts in a way that the whole effort of the community has been placed to really encourage this for broad-based economic development in our whole community. But we're all here. I think we've got the same message. There are people here who've studied this profoundly and over many years. But the short thing is, we're here to encourage you to get the truth told. And so let's have a report that is really fair to everybody. It's invaluable work, but it's only if you're willing to tell the truth about what really is the state of this program going on. Thank you, and thank everybody here.
Again, just a reminder to leave with your name and the name of the organization or business you represent.
My name's Don Majors. I'm the chairman of the NAACP Economic Development Committee. And we've been looking at this for at least a year, the situation with minority participation in government, Metro government contracts. I got a question for you. There are 621 people listed as being registered with Metro government to do work under the PNP. Did they get notices about these meetings? Can you answer that before I continue?
Yes, we sent notice to everybody that was on Metro.
Everybody that's on the list?
Mm-hmm. And then some additional firms as well.
Okay.
Several additional firms, actually.
Well, there are a couple.
One thing right now, I mean, you know, people do have regular jobs. So
Right.
That's why I'm concerned about the time.
Well, please, for the nature of his commentary, allow only one person to speak at a time. I will address that question at a later time after we're done with the commentary portion. I can tell you specifically that we make sure that we try to spread out the times for options for people to be able to attend one or the other, but I can talk more about that at a later date.
You know, I think one of the more frustrating things is the fact that I'm not critical of your group or Mason Tillman, who did the first study in 1999, because you did make recommendations that were not implemented, and it's not your job to implement them. It's because there was no political will in this city from the leadership, from the mayor's office down to the council, to make those implementations, put them in place and make them work. Now, I'm thrilled to death to know that we got two council members here who are behind us and making it work this time. So all you got to do is stay the course and make the same type of implementation. You made the same recommendations in 2005 when you guys did that study. Then you did the 2012, 2014, and 2017 benchmark reports. They all said the same thing. Minority businesses and women-owned businesses have been significantly underutilized. And according to Croson versus Richmond, that constitutes, at the minimum, passive discrimination against these groups. So we have the justification. If we've got the political willpower within our council and our city leadership, we'll be able to make this work. But it's not going to work unless the council and the mayor decide that this is the direction we're going to go in. And hopefully you just stay the course.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Just as a reminder, this is the 2018 Disparity Study public hearings. We have the floor open for commentary. I'll allow you to approach, and please lead with your name and the name of your organization or business.
Yes, sir. My name is Sam Kirk, and I'm the president of the Bordeaux Business Coalition. And the reason I wanted to stand is I certainly agree with a lot of what has been said today, and it's unfortunate that it seems like an unfair business environment for small, minority, women-owned businesses. I want to take a different perspective just for the public record, though, because thanks to both our council people here and Councilman Cooper, appreciate you last night helping us to understand that we've got a $9 billion transit plan potentially coming to our city right now. And in Bordeaux, we know that Bordeaux is one of the next growth areas for this city. We're in the process of making sure that we position business owners and contractors so that we can all benefit from what's coming down the pike. And that's why, to Mr. Majors, I appreciate, let's make sure that whatever you recommend, let us know. Does there need to be a watchdog agency that's put in place? What do we need to do from those of us who have organizations and businesses to ensure that whatever is recommended at least is given fair consideration? Because it hasn't been noted in the past that the reports have made much of a change. And we know here in Bordeaux, growth is coming, and we're positioning Bordeaux to make sure that we can take some of our small minority business owners here can take advantage of some of it. It's interesting, even in our current budget, not much is given in terms of this particular area of the city, but we do know that that's getting ready to change. And so just want to make sure that, for the record, that we as the Bordeaux Business Coalition want to make sure that we have a process that's easier, a process. I love the First Lady's comment. Some of these processes are so arduous. I've talked to small business owners. They don't have the time to go through all the paperwork. A short form for a smaller project, those are the kind of things that maybe a watchdog agency could be helpful in implementing and helping to make sure that whatever you recommend is implemented.
Great. Thank you. Yes, sir. You may approach.
My name is Habib. I own a company called Locomotion Creative. I want to reflect on some things that have already been said about the process. It is incredibly cumbersome. And I agree with you, what you were saying and what the gentleman was just talking about. The procurement process is a very laborious, very expensive, in some ways bureaucratic at its core, that I think has to be able to be improved. Because the experience of actually working with Metro, and we were awarded a project a few years ago, a very large project. The experience of working with the group that we did the project for was actually wonderful. And we enjoyed it. We got feedback. We met with the mayor. We actually produced some really great work. But the process getting there is so hard to do that I just pass over so many things, because I think we can do great work, but getting the opportunity is really hard. We're working on an RFP right now, and just the requirements, the reaching out to DBEs and WBEs and how they have to be reported. In this case, we have to reach out once a month and report all the communications that we have once a month. I mean, we're all small companies here. We don't have staffs that can spend time doing those kind of things, and so we're very concerned about the process. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. You may reapproach. And just please also state your name again, just to make sure we maintain the record.
It's Don Majors again. One thing I didn't mention earlier, my colleague had mentioned something about infrastructure being put in place. And I hope you guys, when you make your recommendations, consider the fact that the BAO, the Business Assistance Office, is understaffed, and I'm sure it's difficult for them to follow through on these good faith efforts that these primes are supposed to make to the subs. And it would probably be helpful if they had the amount of personnel available to do the proper job. And that's going to also fall into place a political will on the part of the council members when the next budget cycle comes up to appropriate the adequate amount of funding so that they can get those new employees.
Right. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, lady right here.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Give us 1 second. She wanted, before we get into
I just have
secondary.
one
Yeah, go
real
ahead. While
quick
she's
comment.
approaching.
Greg Rice, reapproaching. I know I spoke of the challenges, but I can also speak of one good thing. If you do get a contract with Metro as a minority woman-owned or small business, they do have things in place where you can receive your payment within 14 days. And as a small business, cash flow is everything. So kudos for Metro for doing that.
Great. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You may approach. You have to use this one.
Hi, my name is Brenda Booker, and I'm owner of a small engineering firm, a little bit bigger than her firm, but I do have some of the same experiences that she had. As far as trying to be selected from an RFQ as a small business, it's very hard to do. I've been in business for 20 years. I've never been selected as a prime, and I actually gave up after a couple of years because it was apparent to me that that was something that was not going to happen. So what I decided to do was to try to go a different route. I do roadway lighting, and there's not a lot of roadway lighting engineers in Nashville or even in the country. So it was my goal to make myself the best roadway lighting engineer available anywhere. And with that, when there are roadway projects that have roadway lighting on it in Metro, usually I'm on the team that is selected. And usually I am on all of the teams that put in a proposal. So some things that Metro does is positive. When I first started 20 years ago, I did have the experience of being on teams and didn't get any of the work, or didn't get all of the work that they said they would give to me. I have not found that to be true recently. And in the beginning, so I guess I would like to say that the process is slow, and that I have seen over the 20 years some progress, but it has been slow as far as making sure that they have a percentage of people, a percentage of minority firms that are on each RFQ or RFP that comes out. I think Metro does a good job at that. I'm not sure how much is actually awarded. I can only speak for the jobs that I participate in, and I think it's still has a lot to do with what we're able to offer Metro, and that we have to kind of put ourselves in a position to set ourselves apart from the others. Because the bigger contractors, if they can do roadway lighting, then they will do it. But because Metro made them have that part of the contract that they have to have minority firms, that made it possible for me to be able to submit on every firm. So that part of it, I think, is a positive aspect of things that Metro does. As far as the payment process, well, I still have to get paid through my prime contractor, and that does make it very difficult on small businesses, because we usually don't have the money available to wait around to get paid. And that is something, I don't know how to solve that, and I don't even know that it's Metro's problem as much as it's my problem. So those are just some of the things that I have experienced, some bad, some good, but not all bad and not all good.
Hello, my name is Lisa Howe, and I'm the CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We provide opportunities, access, and resources to LGBT business owners, professionals, and their visible allies. We promote economic development, growth, inclusion, and leadership in our region. Our chamber is made up of over 300 members, of which approximately 150 are small businesses, and 100 of those are owned by a person who identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. And I'm here today in the spirit of partnership to go on record to help convey the importance of adding certified LGBT business enterprises, known as LGBTBEs, to Metro Nashville's supply chain and diverse procurement spend. As today's climate makes it difficult for some of our LGBT business owners to go on public record, I'm happy to represent those businesses from the Nashville area. The lived-in experience, successes, and struggles of LGBT business owners and individuals is simply not being measured. It's as if we don't exist in the economy. We are not included in the U.S. economic census, and until recently, not included in any government business development programs designed to support diverse communities. Economic marginalization and underutilization are obvious in a state like Tennessee, where even basic non-discrimination protections do not exist. LGBT people are still not being counted. And while I do appreciate the efforts to include the LGBT Chamber in this study, LGBT business owners are not officially being counted in this disparity study. So we believe that adding certified LGBT business enterprises to Metro's contracting is the next step in full equality for our community. We feel that LGBT people are being underutilized in contracting and business development programs. And if Metro believes LGBT people are not experiencing disparity, then add them and track them. If there is significant disparity and underutilization, then we will work with the Metro Office of Business Assistance, Michelle Hernandez-Lane, Chief Procurement Officer, and Javal Watson, Business Development Officer, or whoever is appropriate, as we have off and on for the last 4 years, to communicate to the LGBT business community that they will have fair and equal access to business contracting opportunities. I believe including these diverse business owners will not only right a wrong, it will cultivate innovation, create jobs, and drive economic growth throughout our city and region. We will also work closely with our peer organizations like the Nashville Black Chamber, Nashville Hispanic Chamber, Tennessee Latin American Chamber, and others, and anyone in this room, advocating on behalf of all of our multicultural economy. Our goal is an equal and level playing field for the diverse and multicultural entrepreneurs and business owners that have redefined and innovated America's small businesses. When all diverse segments of the population are empowered to succeed, it means more economic strength for the city. It means more tax revenue, more jobs, untapped economic potential, and business development. It's a formula for proven success. LGBT people have the same American dream as everyone else, to grow a business and create jobs. We currently live in a city and state where LGBT individuals can still be fired from their jobs by virtue of simply being who they are. Being an out LGBT business owner can adversely affect the bottom line. And this disparity study is a critical first step toward providing certified LGBT businesses with equal access to city contract bidding processes. It's not just the right thing to do. For red-blooded, tax-paying LGBT people, it's the smart thing to do for Nashville's economy. And when Councilman Cooper spoke, it reminded me, just talking about the ethics of the vendors in Metro, and I'm on the Metro Sports Authority board, and we look at those vendors that work with Nissan Stadium, and to see vendors on there who discriminate against anyone in this room, I hope that we can put our eyes on that too and make sure that we're choosing vendors that represent Metro in this possible way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cool, you may reapproach.
I just want to add some fact. As Don Majors had mentioned, we've been looking at these numbers for over a year, and we just like to share some input of our findings. When we look at Nashville, Metro government has two programs, a prime program and subcontractor program. The subcontractor program represents the 2008 P&P legislation, okay? There was a total of $379,556 spent over the last 5 years, 2012, 2006. Okay, black businesses received about $8 million of that, okay? So which represents a little over 2.1% of that total expenditure. And the prime business, they spent $2.9 billion. So now, our concern is that even if the P&P program was working correctly and all minorities captured 100% of that, that's still a small portion of the total spend. In all, in the last 5 years, Metro Nashville government spent $3.3 billion, okay? Of that total, 1.88% went to black businesses, and all minorities as a whole received less than 4%, okay? So that's the issue that we hear. I mean, it's not only the reflection of our frustration, but it's a reflection of Nashville's own numbers, okay? I mean, a program that's intended to have outreach to minority businesses where the primes have to reach out to them, and they only do 3.5% over 5 years. Doesn't look like there's very much monitoring and supervision taking place.
Thank you all for all of the testimony thus far. Has been excellent, very pertinent and important to us, and we really appreciate your time and participation. Just as a matter of housekeeping, for those who may have come in after we began, please make sure to sign in on the back table. If there was anyone else who would like to give testimony prior to us concluding today, please indicate it and we'll motion you towards. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alicia Haddock. I'm the director of Magruder Family Resource Center, representing the nonprofit arena. And we provide social services to the community. Our population is about 85% African American that we serve. We provide basic needs to the Nashville community, but especially the North Nashville community. We also provide workforce development, programming, entrepreneurship programming, youth development, arts and community programming for the entire family, as well as health and wellness. And I just wanted to say that last year when the Metro, or the mayor's office, proposed to take over the YMCA and put in similar programming try to provide it to the Bordeaux community and to this area, I thought that it was a disservice because we already provide those services in the community. Magruder Family Resource Center is located on 25th Avenue North, right off of Clarksville Highway. And so if we were approached or given an opportunity to partner with the mayor's office or with Metro to expand our programming, then we wouldn't have had this uproar in our community to begin with, because I know for a fact a lot of people were upset because we were going to potentially lose the YMCA of Bordeaux. So we could have easily been included in the mayor's budget to give us an opportunity to expand the good programming that we're providing for the North Nashville and the Nashville community. So instead of trying to recreate the wheel, a lot of good services, a lot of good businesses are already in place, but if we were able to provide those services, then I think we would see a more diverse and inclusive Nashville, instead of trying to recreate the wheel or give the services to people who are essentially not familiar with this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Dan Lane. I'm the owner of ABL Realtor Services and a past owner of Music City Office Supply House. I've been in business here since 1974 when I opened Music City Office Supply House for about 10 years. And probably over a 10-year time period, I received only about $10,000 in purchases from the city. I'm going to reiterate what I think Councilman Cooper said. In my mind, we can talk about legislation, laws, infrastructure, and so forth. Basically, my feeling here is none of that is not the problem. It's the political will, I think, in our government system here and also in major stakeholders here, like our Chamber of Commerce and so forth. And nothing is going to change until we come up with a method to let them feel the pressure that they need to change if this city is going to keep going. So in my opinion, it's a lack of political will, and I would recommend that you think about how can you go about changing political will in a city like Nashville that is growing. If you can do that, I think you will be successful.
Yes, ma'am, you may approach.
Hello, my name is Roberta Pettis, and I am the president and co-founder of FocusWorks Consulting Group, and we are a training and development consulting business specializing in developing people and organizations. I have been in business for around 6 years, 100% for the last 4.5 years. I've been to countless meetings like this where we have constantly talked about the minority spend being 1% or 2%, and going into the 5th year and going into 2018, it's very discouraging to hear that the numbers are still there. I have heard about the disparity studies. I've been interviewed, and people have talked to me several times about that, but it is much easier for me to go to a corporate client, and that is one of the reasons why I have not been pursuing as many Metro contracts, because quite frankly, as been mentioned several times, you don't have the manpower to do all of the paperwork and write that proposal. Secondly, sometimes you don't hear about anything. You don't hear about your efforts. And it's much easier for me to go out to my corporate clients and get the corporate work. But the work that I do in corporate America, I think, would be very beneficial for Metro government employees. And I know it will be. Luckily, I have been able to work with a couple of Metro contracts, and the work that we have done has been outstanding from the surveys that we have sent out. So it's very discouraging that we're still having to jump through so many hoops. We have to still gather to talk about why aren't you spending with minority firms that have already proven that they have a quality service. And while we're still giving prime contracts 100% of a contract and allowing them to monitor the minority spend. Those things are very discouraging. We've had many discussions. I know a group went to Seattle at one time. They've gone to Houston. I mean, we have tons and tons of data that talks about what cities have done to turn these numbers around, and we are still here having the same discussion. So I would be very interested to know what happened, what were the recommendations from the last time. I would like to know what recommendations were put forth and why those things were not implemented. And I would like to be included in the process going forward in some type of an action plan so we can actually look at the numbers, look at what contracts are going out, what companies were bidded on those contracts. I mean, I want to see the actual data and then have some discussions and not just meet once or twice, once a year or once every 2-3 years to have this same type of discussion. It's time for us to move forward. So as a small business owner, I would like to be able to be involved in that. And just like Sharon Hurt mentioned, I want to see what happened with those recommendations. And I would like for someone to tell us why they weren't implemented and why aren't people being held accountable. We have an entire department in Metro that is supposed to monitor this. So we need to see what is the data, why aren't these things happening? Because I would love to be able to work with Metro going forward, but honestly, I don't have the time to keep fighting to get, any kind of a contract when I know that I can just go to corporate and get a lot of these other contracts. So it's very discouraging, and I would like to make sure that I am included and get to hear what happens going forward. And I'm hoping that this will not be the last time that we meet. I think that it needs to be some type of a monthly or at least quarterly initiative where we are actually looking at the numbers and we are tracking who is giving out contracts, who's been awarded contracts, who has not been awarded, why they weren't awarded contracts. I would like to see the actual data and be involved in that process. Okay, thank you.
Just as a matter of follow-up, I've heard multiple people inquire about that previous study. Once the study is released, it is available to the public on record. I believe that if you Google it, it may come up. I can't specifically say. I just haven't searched for it online in a while. But that record is available. It does also include the executive summary, and in that full report, it also includes the findings and recommendations. Again, I can't speak specifically to the conversations that were had in 2004. Unfortunately, that was a bit before my time with Griffin and Strong, but there was some conversation that happened with the elected officials at the time where they determined that that was not in their best interest to implement all of those recommendations. But that would be a conversation for the Metro side, and that would be something that they would have to explain. Yes, ma'am, really quickly.
Is that also published somewhere, not just the recommendations, but actually what happened with those recommendations, what was implemented and what was not?
I can't say specifically if it was published. Typically, a lot of these items, and I'll just talk about what a typical process looks like, will involve some sort of discussion where it goes before the council, it goes before the mayor. There's some sort of voting process for implementation of recommendations. In 2004 and subsequently really 2008, I'm just not sure what that process looked like. But I mean, it may be available, it may not. They may have kept council minutes from that particular meeting. I just can't say with certainty.
And there probably needs to be some type of committee set up of small business owners that are actually working on recommendations and being involved in that process instead of just doing a study and then sending that off, and then we're just sitting here waiting.
Right.
And that could be happening. I'm just not sure.
Right.
40 years, I'm not really sure.
And I can say that one of the specific recommendations that has been discussed with some of the organizations in the community involves setting up a similar type of committee that was supposed to be responsible for some oversight. But we can talk a little bit more about that after the public hearing. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to
That's exactly what I was going to suggest, is that there's a community oversight board. I know that there's a procurement and standards board that's a part of the Metro structure. But if there was an outside independent community oversight board for these particular contracts, we might find ourselves doing better business with minorities.
Great, and let the record reflect that was Councilwoman Hurt that was speaking as well. Yes, sir.
Let me point out that was part of the 2005 recommendation was an oversight board that you're speaking of, but the city didn't have the political will to implement it.
Oh, and by the way.
Really quickly, I mean, the conversation is starting to popcorn a little bit. No, I mean, if there is no other conversation and no other commentary that anyone wants to provide on the record, I mean, I really appreciate, oh, you're going to go for us. Okay, great. Well, please, again, begin with your name to make sure we clarify the record.
My name's Michael Tucker, Sonago Builders. Started in 2004. Had a chance to do a lot of work within the city of Nashville. I've also witnessed where minorities were not utilized on a lot of projects. If you currently go to the Metro website, you're looking at monthly reports that is presented, whether it's presented to the council or whether it's presented to different departments within the Metro organization. You'll see contract after contract being awarded with no minority participation. It's devastating to our community. We do not have vocational trades in our schools anymore, and you wonder what's going on with our communities. It's because we're not getting a fair share of minority contracts. Black-owned businesses are not getting a fair share of contracts here with Metro. When you have proposals, RFPs being reviewed and weighted based on how they're presented, the cover, the color, how, decisions are being made based on how the presentation looks. And so a lot of minority companies are being left out of that process because they don't have those resources, the manpower, as you all have stated. We cannot continue to see this going on within the Metro community, in the contracting community, if we're going to be a successful city. So I would like to see the African American community, African American businesses broken out from women-owned businesses, because we're not getting a fair share of the contracts, and it needs to be monitored on a monthly basis, on a project basis, and to allow the prime contractors to produce that document, those documents, to say how much minority participation they have. It's not working. Metro is not watching what's going on. I've been on proposals, and proposals have been awarded, never called to do the work. So the system's broke. It needs to be fixed. If there needs to be other personnel in place, then that needs to happen. But right now, minority contractors are not getting a fair share of the work here in Metro.
Great, thank you. Really quick, is there anyone else who would like to give commentary? Again, I thank you all on behalf of Metro Nashville and Griffin and Strong for your participation. We've had very compelling testimony, lots of very pertinent information, and we really appreciate you all taking your time to come participate with us today. If not, as I mentioned earlier, I will be around for questions afterwards for any additional dialogue and some of the questions that were asked. I will stay around to converse with everyone. Yes, sir, really quickly.
Yep. I did want to say one more thing, just for the public record. We also don't want the minority contractors used just as pass-throughs, where the prime uses them, lets the dollars go through their business, pays them a very, very, very small percentage of what was passed through that business, but they use it so they get the minority participation. So just for the public record, we need to make sure that we're watching that as well.
Right.
Oh yeah, and the majority of women, what happens in a lot of instances, when we get the breakdown that we need to get in terms of minority participation in contracts, somebody mentioned we really need to know what percentage of that is black owned, what percentage of that are the various differences. But Where the women-owned businesses are concerned, a lot of times those are truly run by the husband, but they put the woman in place, and that woman actually ends up getting awarded the contract. So it basically stays in the same vein of business going to these majority, business owners. Right. And so those are the kind of things that this watchdog agency would really be helpful, or whatever kind of committee of oversight would really be helpful in looking for those types of things. So we need to create a fair business environment in the city of Nashville. If the political will is there and the right parties come around the table, we should be able to get it done.
Great. Let the record reflect that was Mr. Sam Kirk. So if no one else has anything else to say, I just want to leave you all with this. I really thank you, and I've mentioned my thanks for you all being here to participate. I want to commit to you all that as Griffin is Strong, we consider equity to be utmost in everything that we do. We consider ourselves really important on justice and fairness, and we commit ourselves to honesty in every study that we do and integrity in everything that we do. I can promise you that the study that we produce will be truthful, it will be integral, in everything that we produce and that we provide to you all. It will be, once it goes public, all of that data, all of the appendages, all of the information that we had will be available to you all, along with the findings and recommendations. And I just want to charge, and I've had this conversation with some outside of this particular platform, that these organizations here in the community, the businesses in these communities, we provide you all these studies as a tool. And these are, it's a way for a guideline for you all to walk out a process that's meant to improve for wherever we are and wherever we start. When we have these studies and we conclude these studies and we walk away from cities, it hurts us when we see cities who are not committed to doing the work the right way. And we really thank you all, the organizations in the room, the advocates in the room. These studies are going to be available to you, and when they become available, we will task you all and charge you all along with us, and we will be prodding them to make sure that they implement the things that we recommend for you all to hold them accountable. Your elected officials, these are the people that you all put in office, and you need to hold them accountable for implementing the things. I mean, they spend money on studies, and there are going to be recommendations that come from them. And you all are the ones who are responsible for holding them responsible for implementing those things to help improve your community and your outcomes. So I thank you all again for being here to participate with us, and I will be available to answer some questions at the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, too, and I'm impressed by you remembering all these names, too.
That's good. So this is
Give them a hand.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my name is Karen Harrison. I have one final comment, and it is for you. The next time you do this, it would be really helpful if we could have more than a week's notice of these meetings. We all own small businesses. We're very busy. Our calendars are full. It's really hard for us to do something on such short notice.
Right. Let the record reflect that we actually started our outreach process a month in advance. I mean, we try to do follow-ups and follow-ups because stuff gets caught in the wash and people miss things. But we want to make sure, as you were saying, that it's of our intent to make sure everyone is notified in a timely manner. So thank you all again for participating, and I will be around for questions afterwards. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.